The room was still. Not the kind of stillness one associates with peace. More like the silence that follows a power outage in a grand mansion. Light spilled through tall glass windows, catching the golden sheen of the curtains and brushing the edges of the bed with theatrical indifference. On that bed, one that cost more than most annual salaries, lay a girl. Sophia. She wasn't lounging. She had collapsed. One arm hung awkwardly over a white pillow, the other gripped a mop handle like it was a lifeline. At her feet, a bucket sat forgotten, its contents sloshing slightly each time she breathed. Her maid's uniform, black and white, standard issue, clung to her in tired creases. Sweat had made it stick to her back. Her face, dark and fine-boned, carried the kind of exhaustion that wasn't romantic or noble, just human. Then came the sound of leather soles on marble. Johnson Anderson entered the room, a man used to control, not chaos. He paused mid-step, a rare thing for him. What he saw didn't compute. His maid was asleep on his bed, armed with a mop. The image was absurd, but he didn't shout. He simply watched. She couldn't have been older than 18. Small, slim, and from the way her body had melted into the mattress, this wasn't laziness. This was surrender. Exhaustion of the kind that burns through muscle and leaves only bone. Johnson frowned, not with anger, but curiosity. Something about this mistake felt different. He stepped forward, bent down, tapped her shoulder. Sophia. Her eyes flew open. Panic hit like voltage. She leapt up, then dropped to her knees, eyes wide with horror. Sir, please, I didn't mean to. I swear, I haven't slept. The words stumbled out, broken by tears. She clutched the mop like a weapon. Her voice cracked. Her body trembled. Please don't sack me. Please. Johnson didn't speak. His heart, usually insulated by layers of efficiency and executive distance, cracked open a little. He knelt beside her. Sophia, he asked gently, why didn't you sleep last night? Her reply came in fragments, the way all real stories do. Her mother was sick, coughing through the night, shaking. There hadn't been time to rest. There was a salary to earn, drugs to buy, rent to avoid. And your father? She hesitated. Shot. Robbery. When I was 14. Of course. He didn't interrupt. He listened, as billionaires rarely do, not for effect, but because something inside him told him this moment mattered. She spoke of dreams left behind. She had once been a top student. She wanted to be a doctor. But poverty doesn't care about dreams. Now she cleaned floors. Johnson stood slowly, picked up his phone. Driver, he said, bring the SUV. We're going somewhere. Sophia looked up, startled. Sir, you're coming with me, he replied. I want to see your mother. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She simply followed. Let me know if this tone, pacing, and structure work for you. If so, I'll continue with part 2. Vuskazali. Нужно сохранить текстуру one chast equals 6,500 символов. Vault Whisperer said. Отлично, тогда я перепишу первую часть на сохранению, повествованию кон дополнением. Около 6,500 символов. Все будет в нужной текстуре, с темпом и размахом, подходящим для начала истории. Начинаю. Вот обновленный Part 1 Errart. Part 1. The Maid Who Slept. There was no noise. Only sunlight, the kind that slips in uninvited, brushing across silk curtains and falling over furniture that costs more than a decent car. The room was designed to impress even in silence. And on the center of its crown jewel, the bed, lay a girl in a maid's uniform, fast asleep. Her name was Sophia. No one was calling it now. Her head had sunk into a pillow far softer than anything she was allowed to touch. One hand still gripped a mop. Not tightly, more like it had been her last gesture before everything inside her gave out. The mop bucket was toppled near her foot, half full, forgotten. Her uniform, once crisp, was now damp with sweat. Her body curled slightly, not for comfort, but from the way exhaustion folds the spine. Then came the sound of footsteps. Leather soles meeting marble with the kind of quiet assurance that only belongs to men who have long forgotten what it means to fear losing. Johnson Anderson, owner of the house, founder of Anderson Holdings, a man whose name opened doors and closed boardrooms. He walked in, checking his phone, expecting the usual emptiness of a well-maintained room. What he got was a girl asleep on his bed with a mop in her hand. He stopped, not out of anger, just surprise. Rare for him. He stared at her, this tiny body half buried in his pillows like some orphan story character. The lines on her face told him this wasn't rebellion. She hadn't decided to nap mid-shift. This was collapse. The kind of sleep that punches you in the chest and drags you under. He said nothing at first, then quietly stepped closer, bent down, tapped her shoulder once. Sophia. Her eyes flew open like doors in a storm. She sat up, too fast, and as her vision cleared and her brain caught up, the horror arrived. She scrambled off the bed and dropped to her knees. Sir, I didn't mean to. Please, please don't sack me. I haven't slept. Words stumbled over sobs. Her hands clutched the mop like a confession. Her eyes locked on the floor. Johnson didn't raise his voice. He crouched. Sophia, why didn't you sleep last night? She tried to speak. It came out broken. My mother's sick. She coughed all night. I stayed up. But I had to come to work today. I needed the month's salary. For her medicine. Her voice cracked on the word medicine. Johnson blinked. Slowly. What about your father? Dead. He was a taxi driver. Shot in a robbery when I was 14. Of course. Sophia looked older now. Not in face, in weight. The kind that settles on young shoulders too early and doesn't leave. Her eyes didn't beg for sympathy. She wasn't playing for pity. She was just tired. Deep, bone-level tired. And terrified of what it might cost her. I used to be the best in school, she said suddenly. I wanted to be a doctor. But nobody helped. I became a maid so my mom could stay alive. Johnson rose to his full height. He stared at the mop, the bed, then at her. He pulled out his phone. Driver, he said, voice calm. Bring the SUV to the front gate. Sophia flinched. Sir, you're coming with me. Where? I want to meet your mother. She didn't move, just stared. Minutes later, they were in the car. The SUV glided out of Victoria Island, past the clean boulevards and high gates, toward the less photogenic part of Lagos, Ajagunal. Johnson had never been there. Not personally. He'd read numbers about it in reports, maybe signed off a charity check once. But today, he was driving into the city's forgotten side. And what he saw left him quiet. Houses clung to each other like frightened animals. Paint peeled from every surface. Smells lingered like stories with no endings. Flies danced lazily in the sun. Children sat barefoot outside cracked buildings, their eyes dull with waiting. Sophia led him down a narrow alley. This is us. A door made of patch plywood. Inside, the air was thick. Amanda, her mother, lay on a mattress barely worthy of the name. Her skin was pale. Her lips cracked. Every cough sounded like a body rejecting itself. A faded wrapper clung to her, like a surrender flag. Johnson stopped. He had seen numbers. Seen graphs. He had heard about poverty, spoken of it in roundtable forums. But this was the first time it looked him in the face and dared him to blink. He dropped to one knee beside Amanda. Driver, he called without looking away. Get me an ambulance. Private. Now. No more than 30 minutes later, Amanda was on a stretcher in one of the best private hospitals in Victoria Island. Monitors blinked around her. Doctors moved efficiently. Nurses bowed slightly when they saw Johnson walk in. Sophia sat beside her mother's bed, still too stunned to process. That morning, she had been a maid. By evening, her mother was being treated like a diplomat. And Johnson Anderson, the man who once fired an executive for being late to a quarterly meeting, sat beside them, calmly reviewing Amanda's blood test results on a tablet. He glanced at Sophia. She'll be okay. The infection's early. Few days, antibiotics, rest. She stood slowly. Sir, I don't know what to say. He didn't look up. No need. You already said it, when you kept showing up to work every day. Then, after a pause, I lost my wife. Cynthia. She died during childbirth. Our third. I had everything money could buy, and nothing that could hold me at night. So I made a decision. If I ever found someone I could help, I'd never walk past again. Amanda stirred in her bed. Her eyes opened. When she saw Johnson, she tried to sit up. He leaned in. Stay still. Amanda's lips moved slowly. Thank you for seeing us. He smiled faintly. You're not going back to that house. Either of you. My mansion has space. Amanda blinked. Yes, sir. He waved a hand. Call me Johnson. And yes, I mean it. 3 days later, Amanda and Sophia stepped out of a black SUV into the manicured driveway of Anderson Mansion. But they hadn't arrived yet. Their story, the real one, was just about to begin. For most people, stepping through the front doors of Anderson Mansion was like walking into a luxury magazine. Marble floors reflected the chandelier light in perfect symmetry. The scent of lavender floated through the air like an expensive whisper. But for Sophia and Amanda, it was something else entirely. It was the first time they'd entered a house through the front. Not as staff, not with buckets, as guests. The housekeeper, Mrs. Otta, nearly dropped her clipboard when she saw them. This must be Madame Amanda and young Miss Sophia. She bowed slightly, still recovering from the shock. Welcome. Please, come in. Sophia's legs moved reluctantly, like the body hadn't informed them they were no longer mopping. Everything sparkled. The staircase was the size of their old apartment. The couch in the living room looked like it had never known dust. Amanda stared at a painting on the wall, abstract, bold, and blinked like it was speaking in code. Mrs. Otta led them upstairs, her tone shifting from stiff professionalism to the warmth of someone who'd seen miracles before. These are your rooms. She opened 2 doors. What lay behind them defied Amanda's sense of proportion. A bed with a silver frame, curtains like melted cream, air conditioning, a wardrobe the size of their old kitchen, and silence, the kind only wealth can afford. Amanda whispered it out loud. This can't be real. Sophia didn't speak. She was too busy memorizing everything. In the far room, a walk-in closet waited like a challenge. She had spent years folding other people's clothes. Now she had nowhere near enough of her own to fill even one drawer. Then came footsteps again. Johnson entered with his daughters, Sarah and Amaka. The older one, Sarah, was reserved, quiet, polite. Amaka, by contrast, seemed to have swallowed a battery. She ran straight up to Sophia and hugged her. "You're so pretty," she declared. "Can you help me with my science homework later?" Sophia blinked. She had been called many things, girl, maid, excuse me, but never pretty. Johnson chuckled. "From today, this is your home too. My daughters know. Amanda, I spoke to HR. You used to be a data analyst, yes?" Amanda nodded slowly. "You'll start work next month. Part-time, of course, after you've fully recovered." She opened her mouth to object. Nothing came out. "And Sophia," he continued, turning to her, "you're going back to school." That snapped her back. "Sir, I've hired a private tutor. You're preparing for university. Medicine, right?" She blinked. "Yes, but—" "No buts," Johnson said firmly. "Dreams don't die in this house. We feed them until they live again." Tears welled up in her eyes, the quiet kind. No sobs, no theatrics. Just the disbelief of someone whose life had been one long no suddenly handed a yes. By the end of the first week, routine began to settle in. Not the tired kind with bus stops and sweat, but a new rhythm, steady, structured, strange in its gentleness. At 9 a.m. sharp, Sophia sat in the mansion's east study, across from Mr. Daniel, the tutor. He was serious, methodical, and unimpressed by emotion. But after a few sessions, even he had to admit, the girl was brilliant. "I've taught rich kids," he muttered one morning to Johnson. "But this one, she has a surgeon's brain." Johnson nodded. He wasn't surprised. Amanda, meanwhile, was slowly regaining color. She began light physical therapy, took short walks in the garden, read articles on her tablet. Sometimes she helped the kitchen staff just for fun, which confused them greatly. On her 3rd week, Johnson walked in holding a grocery bag and found her at the counter with a knife in hand. He raised an eyebrow. "A billionaire chopping onions?" Amanda teased. "I'm full of surprises," he said. Something passed between them. Not flirtation. Not yet. But the beginning of permission. Dinners grew livelier. Amaka adored Amanda's cooking. Sarah, who had once spoken in syllables, now started conversations. Sophia began laughing again, not the nervous laugh of survival, but the relaxed, bubbling kind. One Sunday evening, as they sat on the balcony sipping juice and watching the sun perform its final bow over the city, Sophia noticed something. The way Johnson looked at her mother, and the way Amanda looked back. "Do you think your dad likes my mom?" she whispered to Amaka. The girl giggled. "He smiles more now. That's suspicious." A few weeks later, Johnson knocked on Amanda's door. She opened it in her house robe, surprised. "Pack a bag," he said. "I beg your pardon. I need you on a business trip. Abuja. Just 2 days. You used to be a data consultant, right? I need your eyes on a new analytics platform." Amanda hesitated. Are you sure I'm? Sophia says you were one of the best. Amanda smiled. Small. A little shy. All right. I'll come. The trip was nothing extraordinary, except it changed everything. They talked in the hotel lounge until midnight. He asked about her childhood. She asked about his late wife. They ate room service spaghetti and laughed at old sitcom reruns on a shared screen. By the time the flight landed back in Lagos, something between them had quietly shifted. Something that didn't need announcing. One night, Sophia walked past the open balcony doors and froze. There they were, her mother and Johnson, sitting close, laughing softly. And then, he reached into his pocket. Knelt. Amanda gasped, hand to mouth. Sophia's own heart stopped. He opened a small black box. The ring inside wasn't large. It was simple, but it shimmered like a secret. Amanda, he said, voice low but steady. I've watched you rebuild. I've watched you give this house warmth again. You didn't just raise your daughter, you helped raise my daughters, too. You made me believe in life again. Will you marry me? Amanda's eyes filled. Not the way one cries in movies. This was gentler, realer. She nodded, barely breathing. Yes. Sophia ran to them before she knew her legs were moving. She hugged them both. There were no words left. The gardener swore he heard angels that night. Weddings in wealthy homes tend to follow a pattern, over-budgeted, over-styled, and emotionally underwhelming. This one didn't. Johnson and Amanda were married in the garden behind Anderson Mansion, beneath a white canopy strung with soft lights and woven with hibiscus flowers. The ceremony was modest, by Billionaire standards. No magazine deals, no choreographed entrances. Just people, quiet smiles, and the kind of joy that doesn't ask to be photographed. Amanda wore an ivory gown that shimmered only when the sun insisted. Her natural hair was styled with delicate gold pins. She walked down the aisle not alone, but with Sarah on one arm and Amaka on the other. At the altar, Sophia waited, holding the bouquet. Her back was straight, her eyes proud. Guests whispered. Not judgment, just disbelief. Is that the maid's daughter? No, that's the doctor-to-be. The vows were short, honest. Amanda spoke of healing. Johnson spoke of hope. Sophia cried, openly, shamelessly. Happy tears. The applause when they kissed was loud enough to startle the crows. 9 months later, Amanda was back in a hospital, but not as a patient. This time, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy. They named him Emeka. Johnson cried when he first held him. Sarah and Amaka argued over who would hold him next. Sophia stood at the foot of the bed, one hand over her heart, the other holding a phone full of newborn photos she'd already sent to everyone she'd ever met. We've come a long way, Amanda whispered. Sophia nodded. From a mattress on the floor to this. They both laughed, quietly, like people who remembered too well. And yet, even joy can't pause ambition. Sophia returned to her studies with surgical focus. Mr. Daniel doubled her lesson time. Johnson made calls. Amanda stood behind her, quietly supporting, as always. Soon came the letter. Full admission to the University of Lagos, medicine and surgery. Full scholarship. Anderson Foundation. She read it aloud at dinner. Amaka screamed. Sarah smiled. Amanda cried. Johnson hugged her. Not like an employer, not like a sponsor. Like a father. That night, the backyard sparkled with fairy lights strung up by the staff. A small jazz trio played. Plates clinked. Laughter flowed. Johnson gave a speech, brief but heavy. She fell asleep on my bed, he said, and somehow woke up in my heart. Today, I call her my daughter, not because I saved her, but because she saved something in me. Sophia stood and hugged him. Her voice didn't come, but that didn't matter. Some thanks live in silence. University life didn't intimidate Sophia. She intimidated it. She attended lectures like someone owed her answers. She asked the kind of questions professors secretly prepare for, but rarely hear. She studied long nights, came home on weekends, and somehow never forgot where she came from. It was at a medical conference in Abuja that she met George, a young neurosurgeon from Ibadan, recently returned from the U.S., calm, clever, with a smile that made people trust him too quickly. They met during a panel on brain tumor research. By the coffee break, they were sharing notes. By the end of the week, numbers. And not long after that, feelings. One weekend, George came to visit. Sophia brought him to the mansion. The usual tests awaited him. Polite stares from staff, curious questions from Amaka, and then, Johnson. They took a walk. What are your intentions? The classic. George didn't flinch. To support her, grow with her, and, if she'll have me, build something that lasts. Johnson clapped him on the back. Good answer. A year later, George proposed. He waited until the entire family had gathered in the garden, ostensibly for dinner. At sunset, as fireworks lit the sky, he knelt. Sophia didn't cry at first. She laughed. You planned this with them? Of course, he said. You don't surprise the Andersons without clearance. She said yes. Loudly. Amanda gave a speech at the reception. Everyone sees the doctor now. But I saw the girl who held a mop tighter than most hold diplomas. The girl who never gave up. Sophia replied in kind. Everything I've built is because you showed me how to stand when the world offered no hand. Amanda's own life had shifted again. She was now director of data and intelligence at Anderson Holdings. She traveled often, London, Dubai, Nairobi, but always returned home in time to help Emeka with his multiplication or check Sophia's new research paper. She and Johnson still left handwritten notes under each other's pillows. Sometimes it was grocery reminders. Sometimes it was, I love you in 2 words or less. There was no glamour in their marriage. Only truth. 3 years after Sophia's wedding, the cycle repeated. Twins. A boy and a girl, Jerry and Janet. Named for Amanda's late husband and Johnson's late wife. The past folded gently into the future. Amanda wept when she held them. These are miracles, she whispered. Johnson nodded. Emeka now 4 and clinging to his leg. Full circle, he said. Amanda turned to him. Do you realize none of this would have happened if you hadn't stopped that day? If you hadn't woken up a maid sleeping in your bed? He smiled. Sometimes the biggest doors are opened by the softest knocks. Sophia joined them, holding both babies. She looked around. The mansion, the family, the fullness. Thank you, she whispered. For kindness. For giving us a home. It was a quiet Saturday. The kind of morning where everything in the Anderson mansion moved a little slower. Amanda was in the garden with Sarah and Amaka, trimming flowers. Emeka Jr. was riding a toy car down the hallway like a man late to a meeting no one scheduled. Inside, Sophia was on the floor with her twins and George, surrounded by stuffed animals, bottles, and the steady chaos that joy brings. Then, the doorbell. Johnson, fresh from his morning jog, towel slung around his neck, answered it without ceremony. A woman stood there. A red wrapper hung off her shoulder. Her sandals were cracked. Her feet were dust-covered. Her lips sunburnt. In her hand, a nylon bag with unknown contents. She looked older than her years, and nothing like memory paints its subjects. Good morning, sir, she said. Her voice was dry. I'm looking for Sophia. Johnson turned. Sophia, he called over his shoulder. Visitor. Sophia entered the room holding baby Janet. One glance at the doorway, and her steps froze. The air between recognition and response thickened. Auntie Adana? The woman looked down. I saw the wedding on Facebook. I didn't know how else to reach you. Sophia's mouth was tight. Adana was her father's only sister. She had once mocked Amanda, abandoned them, and disappeared with her brother's pension. When poverty pressed in on them, Adana had offered only laughter and a locked door. Now she stood at the gate. Broke. Sick. Alone. I was wrong, she said. I thought your mother would die poor. I didn't know this day would come. Johnson quietly stepped aside and let her in. Amanda entered from the garden, clippers still in hand. She paused when she saw who it was. Adana dropped to her knees. Amanda, forgive me. I said cruel things. I left you to suffer. I didn't think you'd survive. Amanda helped her up. I forgave you a long time ago. I just didn't think I'd see you again. I have no one, Adana said, eyes on the floor. My daughter threw me out. My health is not good. Sophia looked to Amanda, then to Johnson. He gave a subtle nod. Amanda spoke first. Let her stay? Not for her sake. For the mercy God showed us. They gave her a guest room near the staff quarters. She accepted it in silence. The past had returned, but it was no longer dangerous. Later that night, Sophia stood on the balcony. Below, moonlight danced on the pool's surface. George wrapped his arms around her from behind. You did the right thing, he said. I didn't want to, but you did. I kept thinking, what would Johnson have done? George smiled. He would have welcomed her. Quietly, kindly, the way he welcomed you. Sophia nodded. Then she turned, serious now. I want to start something. A foundation. In my father's name. For girls like me. Girls who lose their parents, who give up school, who still carry dreams somewhere deep. George didn't hesitate. Then we'll build it together. 3 months later, the Jerry Amanda Foundation was launched. Red carpet. Lights. Cameras. Yes, but also barefoot girls in second-hand dresses walking through a luxury hotel lobby for the first time in their lives. Sophia wore a white suit with gold embroidery. She stood before the crowd, calm. I was once like them, she said, pointing to the front row. Hungry. Forgotten. But kindness changed everything. And that is why we're here. The crowd stood. Amanda wiped her eyes. Johnson smiled quietly from the side, holding Emeka, who clapped because clapping looked fun. A week later, Amanda received a phone call. Mrs. Amanda Anderson? Yes. This is Dr. Adebayo from Abuja General Hospital. We found something on your scans from the routine checkup. It's probably nothing, but we'd like to run further tests. Amanda said nothing. Her fingers tightened on the phone. Can you come in tomorrow? I'll book a flight. She didn't tell Sophia. Not yet. The following morning she flew alone. The doctor was calm. Professional. He spoke slowly. A tumor. Right lung. Early stage. But aggressive. We need to act fast. Amanda nodded, as if he'd told her the weather forecast. When she returned to Lagos, the mask was still intact. She smiled. Hugged Emeka. Kissed Johnson on the cheek. Ate dinner. Said little. But fate has a way of tearing pages early. Sophia found the scan. She had been folding laundry. The folder slipped from Amanda's handbag. She picked it up, opened it, and froze. Lung mass. Urgent surgical intervention. Sophia couldn't breathe. Her knees gave out. Amanda walked in seconds later. Saw her daughter crumpled on the floor, paper in hand. Oh, baby, she whispered. You weren't going to tell me? I didn't want you to worry. I'm your daughter. Amanda sat beside her. I'm scared, but I'll fight. I've done it before. Johnson entered. He said nothing, just walked to Amanda, knelt, and took her hand. We fight this together. The weeks that followed were a blur of hospital corridors, test results, and whispered prayers. Johnson canceled travel. Sophia took leave. Sarah cooked. Amaka skipped swimming lessons to make Amanda laugh. Then came the day. The Lagos University Teaching Hospital. 10 a.m. Amanda was wheeled into surgery. Her fingers clutched the prayer beads Sarah had given her. Outside, Johnson sat with his head bowed. Sophia stood by the window, arms folded, her white coat stiff with dread. She's strong, George whispered. She's survived worse. I know, Sophia replied, but I'm still scared. Johnson looked up. She made me promise I'd take Emeka to the beach when this is over. I already booked the trip. Amaka and Sarah sat holding hands. Emeka was home with the nanny, unaware. The surgeon finally emerged. She made it, he said. Sophia gasped. Johnson exhaled. Sarah cried openly. The tumor was removed. It was early, clean, precise. She would live. 3 months later, the Anderson mansion hosted another party. Balloons, cake, speeches. The 1-year anniversary of the Jerry Amanda Foundation. But also Amanda's recovery. She stood before the guests in a soft peach gown, hair short and strong again. I've stood on many stages, she began. But this is the most precious. Not too long ago, I lay on a floor mattress, coughing my life away. My daughter was mopping floors trying to keep me alive. No one saw us. Except one man. A billionaire who gave a maid kindness instead of punishment. She turned to Johnson. That one act saved our lives. Applause filled the room. Johnson stepped forward, holding a navy blue folder. This, he said, is the full deed to a building in Surulere. It's yours. The permanent headquarters of the Jerry Amanda Foundation. Gasps. Laughter. Tears. Sophia hugged him. I love you, Dad. The first time she'd ever called him that. He didn't speak. He just held her. Sophia was now one of the most respected pediatricians in Lagos. Her name on a chart meant things got done faster. Cleaner. With more care. But even the strongest need rest. One morning, while making rounds, she felt a wave of dizziness. Light at first, then sharp. She leaned against the bed rail. Her colleague noticed. You all right? Probably skipped breakfast. By noon, she'd vomited twice. George arrived within an hour. Drove her to the clinic himself. The doctor smiled after the scan. Congratulations, doctor. You're pregnant. Twins again. George blinked. Sophia stared, then laughed. Again. 2 girls. Both healthy. both strong. The news reached Anderson Mansion before lunch. Johnson nearly dropped his phone. Amanda wept. Out of gratitude, not worry. We need to expand the mansion, Johnson joked. More twins. 9 months later, Sophia gave birth to Nora and Nardia, 2 girls with fierce lungs and stronger kicks. George held them like porcelain. Welcome home, he whispered. Amanda stayed by her daughter's side through it all. She fed the babies, changed diapers, told them bedtime stories. She moved like a woman who had never known a sickbed, never faced a tumor. Strong, steady, whole. Johnson, meanwhile, had officially become a professional grandfather. He owned more pacifiers than pens. I've built companies, he told Amanda one night, holding Nora. Sat in boardrooms with presidents. But this is the wealth that matters. 10 years passed. The Anderson Mansion was full, not just with people, but with history. Laughter echoed through the halls. Smells of jollof rice, lavender soap, and baby powder mixed in the air. The occasion, Johnson and Amanda's 15th wedding anniversary. Under a white canopy, friends, family, and staff gathered. A jazz band played. Children ran between tables. Grandchildren danced barefoot on the grass. Sophia stood in a gold lace gown, George by her side. Their 4 children, the twins and the younger set, clung to her dress, giggling. Amanda and Johnson stepped onto the platform. Amanda held the mic. 15 years ago, she began. I had nothing. No home. No money. My body was failing. And then a stranger gave me a second chance. She looked at Johnson. You didn't just give me a home. You gave my daughter a father. You gave me the courage to believe again. Johnson took the mic. You gave me peace, he said. You reminded me that wealth without love is just furniture. Sophia stepped forward holding a small box. Inside, a golden plaque. Amanda Johnson Anderson. The woman who rose. The mother who fought. The wife who healed. The queen of our home. Amanda gasped. The sun dipped lower. The light turned honey gold. The photographer asked everyone to gather. Amanda sat in the middle, surrounded by Sophia, George, Sarah, Amaka, Emeka, and all the grandchildren. The family formed a circle, not posed, not artificial. Just together. Ready? The photographer asked. Wait, Amanda said. She turned to Johnson, took his hand, whispered just loud enough for the family to hear. Remember the day you found Sophia sleeping on your bed? I remember everything. That moment gave birth to this. And with that, the camera clicked. Not just on a photo, on a story, a life, a legacy, where kindness began quietly and ended louder than anyone could have imagined.